Welcome to the e-commerce growth show, brought to you by Segmentify.
Hello everyone, this is Carlos again with Evolve for another episode of the e-commerce growth show, brought to you by Segmentify with our amazing business influencer here in North America, Scott Emmons. And today we are interviewing Veronika Sonsev. So Scott, you're most welcome to introduce her, and we'll get started.
Great. All right. Appreciate it, Carlos. Welcome, Veronika, and we're excited about the opportunity to get to chat with you today and see, what you've been up to and how you got here, and all those things. So let's start off with your bio. So our listeners know something about your background. So a consultant, a speaker, a connector in the retail industry, and I've certainly experienced your connector function in the past, and have managed to meet some very interesting folks thanks to you. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
She leads the retail practice for Chameleon Collective and is also a contributor to Forbes. That seems to be a very popular thing in the bio for my guests. I need to figure out how to get that gig, how I can be a contributor to Forbes. And then, let's see, you are also an entrepreneur and founder of a company that exited, that was around 2015 or so, I think. That was InSpark.
Yeah.
And part of that was an executive at AOL and another startup, JumpTap.
Yeah.
As well, and also founder of an organization called Embolden that we'll touch upon, I think, during our conversation today, which was formerly called Women in Wireless.
That's right. So
welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be on this show with you guys today.
Great. Let's get started. And I had the opportunity to do one of these shows with Brian Solis a couple of weeks back, and when I was talking to Brian, I asked him the question: did he believe that all dark matter in the universe could be actually primordial black holes?
Don't ask me that question. I have no idea.
Yeah, well, he refused to answer as well. So, I was going to modify it for you and just ask, so what if dark matter does not exist at all? Then what? Okay. So that was purposely nonsensical to start off the interview with. Let's talk about where you came from. And let's go back to your early career, your training ground, right, if you will, right? So AOL and your time at JumpTap, and how did that influence you, and how did that lead to you founding your own company?
Sure, Scott, I'm happy to talk about that. I really look at my career kind of being, at least at this point, in two phases. Like the first phase of my career was very much in the media and advertising space, minus like a very short blip in consulting right out of school. But I spent a lot of time at AOL, and then I spent a lot of time at JumpTap afterwards. And the thing that I've always done is I've always been on the business side of technology. So at AOL, I worked my way up through a very aggressive and interesting biz dev organization. It gave me an opportunity to do big deals with really interesting companies, including at the time Match.com. I guess they're still around, more than AOL, and Univision and all kinds of really interesting companies. And then, I had kind of done some soul searching, decided that for me, what I loved about being at AOL was the early days when I could really make a big impact. And as the company got bigger, I felt like the impact that I could make wasn't as substantial. So I went to an earlier stage company called JumpTap. And actually, this is kind of going to be a theme that you'll hear in my intro. JumpTap was originally doing white label search for phones. They pivoted. They became a mobile ad network. And the first place where we launched ads was actually in Spain. I went over to Spain with really, I don't speak a word of Spanish, trying to figure out how to sell this new product called mobile advertising in the Spanish market. It was pretty amazing, but it was successful, and it helped them pivot into this area. And I loved, working for them and getting that going, and then kind of decided, maybe took almost too much credit for that success, and said, I want to launch my own company. And also became a pivot. I initially wanted to launch a consumer product that kind of pivoted into this B2B product that became InSpark. And that kind of was the second chapter to my career, which was really kind of going into retail and being more of an entrepreneur as opposed to an employee at an earlier stage company. I learned a lot running my own company. I would say, InSpark was acquired, but it wasn't a huge success. And I learned a lot through the process and what it takes to kind of build software and get software in the market. And I really fell in love with the retail industry. I think it's kind of in a place where media was when I was in the media industry before. It's in a huge transition. And I find when things are changing to be very interesting. So when InSpark was sold, I kind of stayed in retail. I became a consultant, helped other technology companies who are in a very similar position to us go into market. And then realized that, one of my clients was a conference, realized that a lot of the way that I market is around relationships and giving people a platform. And, we ended up launching Commerce Next out of that opportunity. So it's been a great journey. I got to meet amazing people like Scott in the process. And I get to work on really interesting challenges in an industry that's changing very quickly.
Yeah, I think, did we not meet at first? It was like a brand collective event and
Brand Garage. Yeah, it was. Yeah, exactly. I think it's the Brand Collective was their event, and it was a Brand Garage event. And it was one of the first kind of conference projects I worked on as a consultant. And
that's where that event was important to me, besides, getting to hang out in Napa Valley for a couple of days, which was pretty cool. I got connected with a couple of other kind of innovation leaders.
Like Dana.
Nina and also from Coach and my Memo Me pals were there, and we had to, that was a pretty good conference. I mean, it was memorable. And useful, what I took away from that. So that's, part of that connector role that you have, I think, it was even evident back then. And a lot's changed, right, since 2016.
Yeah.
I'd have to say.
We're all virtual. We don't meet in person anymore. We do this.
That's true. It's I don't know how long I've been in sort of work from home mode since the end of February. So it's coming up on a year. It feels like forever. Can't wait to get here. To be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. I've been in the same boat. I think the last in-person event we had was like a dinner in either February or early March. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's another interesting, I think, a couple of other very memorable events I did with you were these dinners that would get thrown in New York during NRF, where you sort of brought this amazing collection of, retail minds, together to just chat, right? To just have good conversations. Those were also really interesting events. I have a unique
I think at Commerce Next, we fundamentally feel like we're a community. Like the events are just our execution of community. Sorry, I thought I turned off all my Slacks. Apparently not. But yeah, we look at ourselves as a community, and we, I think that there's a really there's a number of ways people can connect. A conference has certain people on the top of the stage and they're kind of sharing information and other people absorbing and networking. And then dinners are more of an informal, they're almost like a round table, right? As Scott can attest, having attended a dinner, you learn just as much from the person sitting next to you as you do for, like, people also go around the table and share information. So there's two goals in that. There's the goal of networking, and then there's the goal of sharing information, because everything is changing and evolving so quickly. And I think we learn a lot from our internal teams, but we also learn a lot from our peers. And the one thing that's unique, particularly in the retail industry, is you have a lot of companies. There are thousands of retailers out there, and there's people who are in similar roles and have similar challenges. And there's no point in everyone having to reinvent the wheel. Like, you can learn from your peers. Who did you use for this solution? Did you try this kind of advertising? How did it work? Which projects are most relevant? So like, we're trying to help accelerate that learning and that information sharing, at the same time help you kind of build long lasting connections that will help you kind of take your career forward. I think if we can achieve those two things, it's a really successful venture.
Yeah. I think that, go attending events like the kind you're organizing these days were a big part of my inspiration, right? When I was out looking for what was the next big thing, on the innovation side in retail, just hanging out inside my own four walls, talking to internal teams was not going to give enough creative fuel, right? Yeah. To get it done. You needed more than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're head of the retail practice at Chameleon Collective. What does that mean? What are you guys doing?
So first of all, Chameleon Collective is a hybrid between a consulting firm and a marketing services firm. So we're not an agency and we're not exactly consultants, but we're somewhere in between. A lot of times we start with interim leadership roles. So we'll come in when an exec has departed, or a company needs an exec to depart, or they just are trying to bolster their digital practice and maybe don't have that senior exec in place at all, ever. And then what we'll do is we'll, from there, kind of build out a team. So think of us as like, you need to run really fast in a certain direction. You bring us in, we help stabilize things. We help bring in a team of people that will initially be consultants, and then we'll slowly replace ourselves with full-time people that can actually continue to run the business once we're gone. And we've been doing this very successfully across a number of industries, though retail is about 40% of our business. And my role is really, like, I joke around that I'm like the supreme cat herder. I'm trying to get everyone on calls and collaborate. Consulting can be a very lone wolf type of business. And we really think the magic happens when we work together. So I'm trying to get us to work together and bring people on a call and make sure that everyone knows what people are working on, so that they can see opportunities for their colleagues on those projects, and try to look for opportunities for us to be able to grow our practice.
Well, you're basically practicing what you preach at that point, in terms of, getting inspiration outside of your own, comfort zone. Yeah,
absolutely. And we always do that, like Slack, which is why I like my little alarms are going off. I mean, it's a big thing, right? It's exactly the same thing. A lot of times the problems are the same. People may have approached them in a different way, but we'll kind of poll our internal teams and we'll say, okay, this company, they really have an NPS challenge. Has anyone worked on NPS? What tools did you use for NPS? How do you implement it within the organization? And then collect all of that information, kind of synthesize best practices, and then work with their unique situation to implement a solution that is relevant for them.
And then I guess we should touch on Commerce Next specifically, since you were actively involved and a co-founder of that organization as well. So what are you working on day to day at Commerce Next?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, Commerce Next is really my baby. It's where I actually spend the majority of my time these days. So with Commerce Next, my focus is really on building the community, and as part of that, I'm responsible for the content and recruiting speakers. So there's three co-founders, myself, Scott Silverman, and Alan Dick. We all work very closely together and share a lot of roles and responsibilities. But we always say who's on point, right? So I'm on point for content, and that's kind of my focus area. Scott's on point for sponsorships and research, and Alan's on point for operations.
Yeah, and then I guess Scott and Alan both have kind of this NRF background. Is that where you guys connected up, from their roles there, or was it a different way that you came together as a team?
So I actually met Scott Silverman from my co-founder from InSpark, Richie Hecker. So totally random. And I met Alan Dick at shop.org, but we worked together on a different conference, and then really had a good working relationship. I think we complement each other really well, and so decided to launch this together.
Interesting. Here, I had worked with both of them, in their NRF roles as from a speaker perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got it. Okay. So, the last, sort of historical thing is, tell me about Embolden. When did that start, and what's the state of it now? When I kind of look at their website, looked at the website, sort of getting ready for today, it looks, maybe not, it's not at forefront right now, but, maybe I'm reading that wrong.
Oh, so it's actually a really exciting time for Embolden. Embolden was just acquired by another women's nonprofit called She Runs It.
I saw that. Yep.
Yeah. So we started Embolden, over 10 years ago. So when I was at JumpTap, it was focused on, and actually even my last years at AOL, we're very much focused on mobile. And mobile is, I don't know, Scott, if you like, mobile is a very, very male dominated event. We used to go to these conferences and you would just see a sea of men, like literally, I think all of the women in mobile knew each other, and we could probably fill like a conference table. It wasn't like, there wasn't a lot of us. Huh?
I said it was a boys club.
It was a very male dominated field. So, we started it originally as Women in Wireless as a way to help really promote women in the industry. Like, we really wanted to, one, take the few of us that were in the industry and connect us. And we knew that more and more women would be going into the industry as mobile became a platform for the internet, because there was already a lot of women in digital, but there weren't a lot of women in mobile because it was more technical. And we wanted to create a platform to really champion women. So, I started it. It was originally, I want to kind of put like one footnote in it. It was originally founded by Laura Marriott in the MMA, but when Laura Marriott left the MMA, that committee died with it. Charlotte Forbes and I, we revived that committee, launched it as a committee within the Mobile Marketing Association, and then it grew so popular that we spun it out and founded it as a standalone company. So that's what happened 10 years ago. It's always been run by volunteers. We made our money with sponsorship dollars from the companies that worked in the industry. We would continue to grow, but it was like just running on a very spirited and mighty group of volunteers. And we felt like ultimately we needed reinforcements. And so we started talking to folks this year about who would be the right partner to take us forward. We also had broadened the focus from mobile, because now everything is mobile first, and digital and mobile are all blurred, to being a broader digital focus. And She Runs It was an organization that we identified like right from the beginning as a really great partner for us. And that was because they had their focus is, they started out as Advertising Women of New York. Their focus is on digital, particularly on the media side of things, which is where a lot of our strength is. And so we decided to merge the two organizations, and it's really exciting because we have a lot more kind of staff support for what we're trying to do, gives our volunteers a little bit more firepower in terms of what they're trying to accomplish, and still furthers our mission, which is to champion women in the industry. So we're really happy with it.
So that's really, really interesting, and I'm glad we got to bring it, or to talk about it. So if you think about the retail industry as a whole, do you think that I guess a constant a topic when you're just following the news and this kind of the issues of the day has always been not enough women in leadership positions, right? As a general term, do you think that is a problem that's as prevalent in the retail world?
So I actually think the retail world is better than most industries. I would definitely, I don't know if I have to look at, I think there's areas like the boards where I think there's still probably not enough women participating at that level. I would have to look at the statistics on the CEO level. My gut tells me that there's probably less women in the CEO role than there are men. But when you kind of go to like the CMO and the C level, I think that retail starts to look better. You have a lot of heavy hitters in the retail industry that are women that have really led the charge very, very successfully. And then you have a lot of women founders, like companies like Stitch Fix with Katrina Lake. You have Mindy Grossman at the helm of WW. You have CMOs like Melissa Thalberg at running the marketing org at Lowe's. You have a lot of really amazing heavy hitters in our industry. Deborah from Sephora, who's speaking at our upcoming Commerce Next Marketing Summit series. So I think there's a lot of very smart, capable women in our industry, and I think they're in very senior roles. I would love to see them more in the CEO and the board level as well.
Yeah, I guess I lived this kind of sheltered life for a bit. That 16-year stint at Neiman Marcus.
Oh, that's right.
We had a Karen Katz as our CEO for
Karen's amazing. Yeah.
Most of my time, not the whole time, but most of my time there. And then, a ton of the C-suite were women. A lot of the SVPs were women. Everybody I reported to was a woman. So I just, kind of got used to that being the norm. And I think really, in a way, retail's kind of an outlier, in terms of what you find in other industries. So.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you compared like retail to like tech, for example, you probably see way more women in C-suite roles than you do in like technology companies.
Yeah, my early career was Unix, doing Unix and Unix technology. I can tell you that typically things that I did in that world, there were no women.
None.
So yeah, it was could be weird at times. Okay, so let's change gears a little bit. And one of the great things you do at Commerce Next, right, is you guys go out and gather information, right, about kind of the state of the industry, and you're connected directly with the movers and shakers, that have all that relevant information, right?
Yeah.
And you're able to tie it together, in very, useful and interesting ways. So let's talk about, since this, 2020, was a very difficult year, and based on, we're recording this, in early January 2021, and based on the early January events, 2021 is going to be another difficult year if it keeps going like this. But 2020 was certainly a challenging year, especially for retail. So give us some of the insights you guys have gathered on what happened, and what's gonna happen.
Well, yeah. So I'll tell you kind of, maybe before we even talk about what's happened and what's going to happen, I'll tell you what we've been doing since the start of the pandemic to try to help capture this information. Sure. So when the pandemic hit, we're a live events business, right? Everything we did was in person. When the pandemic hit, the one thing that we kind of heard from our community really quickly was everyone wanted information. No one knew what anyone else was doing, what their practices were for closing stores, when they were closing stores, what their e-commerce businesses were doing in comparison. When all of this, there was so many unknowns. Most people have never gone through a pandemic like this before. I don't think anyone has. Yeah. So what we were doing.
Most of us were not alive in 1918.
Right. Right. Maybe if they did business in China, they knew what it was like. But what we did right away was we started launching surveys. So we took our community and we would survey them. And they, before everything was shut down, we were asking people, about their work from home practices, how their retail and e-commerce businesses were doing, what they were seeing as trends in consumer behavior, and then things shut down, and then we kind of kept a pulse on how sales were doing on e-com and in store. Well, at the time they didn't have stores, so things shut down and just e-com. And then when stores reopened, we were asking them about how e-com and stores were doing and how their reopening process was going. So we've been, periodically keeping a pulse on what the retailers are doing and then sharing that out as a way of information. And it's been an interesting, I think if you follow the news, you've been seeing it all, right? So the industry went through lockdown. So all these stores closed. E-com was the big hero. E-com had tremendous growth this year. And then, but in some cases, it depends on what category you were in, the overall business was really strong. But in other cases, just based on demand, the business was very weak. And so it's been all over the place. We've definitely seen kind of winners and losers in this industry. We've seen one of the most unusual and very long holiday seasons that we've ever seen, starting in October. I think the last report I read, I think it was from IBM, said that they believe that the e-commerce has advanced by 5 years. Like the percent of e-commerce shopping is 5 years ahead of where it was supposed to be. And I think in certain categories like grocery, it probably is even further ahead than in some of the other categories that were less penetrated. So it's been incredible. It's been a lot of challenges. And, I think in terms of where it's going, I think we're all hoping, fingers crossed, that vaccines get rolled out quickly and that things can start to go back to normal. But the one thing I would really say is that while some behaviors will revert back to old practices, a lot of new behaviors are going to stick. So, people ordered groceries for the first time during the pandemic, had never ordered it before.
I was wondering, I'd never done that before the pandemic.
Did you have a good experience?
You know what? It was mixed at first, and now I've found my provider, and it's pretty consistently good.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not perfect. There's like fallbacks. They won't have something and then you have to figure it out. But it's a pretty good experience. And I think a lot of people are going to stick to things like grocery delivery. Maybe not all the time. Maybe they'll go shopping every now and then or on their way home from work when they're back in an office. But I think, you've learned to shop online when you're busy and you don't feel like making a grocery trip. You're going to shop online. It comes the same day, the next day. It's pretty convenient.
I see no reason to go to the grocery store to get staples any longer. My wife likes to go every now and then still because she likes to shop for the produce, herself and pick it out herself. But we only have to do that maybe once, a month or twice a month. We don't do it that often. And, most of that other stuff just, is I'm kind of a tightwad. So I do the curbside pickup because they don't charge for that.
Yeah.
But I have also, for whatever reason, I couldn't get to curbside and I've done delivery, and that's actually probably a better experience in terms of getting what you want because the person picking the food calls you and tells you when the thing you want's not there and gives you options.
Yeah.
Right? Where curbside, typically they just make the substitution and you just have to take what you get.
Yeah. There's also different providers. Instacart will call you, like Amazon doesn't. They make a replacement, but then they'll refund you if you don't like what you got as your replacement. So it's kind of like once you learn how to work the system, it's great. But I think this is a perfect example of a behavior that people have adopted a lot of times since the pandemic and are going to probably keep after the pandemic. People are buying furniture, big items without ever seeing it in person. And, once you can go in person, maybe you'll want to go sit on the sofa before you buy it. Maybe you'll try on more clothes, but I think there's a lot of things that people are buying online that they're going to keep buying online. So I don't think that is going away anytime soon. And
yeah, you talked about, winners and losers a little earlier. I think that, if you're selling apparel, you are probably a loser. Because
you're more challenged.
Yeah, well, definitely. Especially, like my previous employer, right? Where you were selling things that were really meant to wear when you went out, but there's nowhere to go,
right.
At this point, right? So why do you need more of that stuff right now, until there's some place to actually wear it?
Right.
The only time I put this sport coat on, which used to be on me, every day is when I do an interview like this now, right? It mostly just hangs around in the closet as an example. So I don't really need to replace it anytime soon because it's not getting worn that often.
Yeah, absolutely. There's certain categories. Fashion has been challenged. department stores, obviously travel. So like the whole travel booking, but also like everything that has to do with travel luggage, all of that stuff is challenged. Non-athletic footwear. Like, I mean, I'm not wearing shoes right now. I don't know, Scott, if you have the sport coat on, if you have the shoes to go with it.
I am wearing shoes and pants, so good news there. But they're basically just a pair of Skechers slip-ons, that are more like slippers than shoes.
Right. Yeah. I have my slippers on. And it's just, like, I think all of that's is had some challenges. And once people go back to real life, I think they'll definitely go back to wearing, call it more formal footwear, more fashion apparel. Although people have, when you adapt to casual, I think people tend to stick to it. A lot of people are predicting that even when you go back to work, they're not going to be in the office 5 days a week. Maybe it's going to be 2 or 3. And so as kind of the world gets more casual, as people are working from home more, I think some of the habits that we acquired during this pandemic will stick, and then others will kind of hybrid and merge. And, we'll start wearing some of our fancy gowns from Neiman Marcus to parties again.
I think about, how previous employers felt about work from home, that I worked for, and they weren't really very pro on that. And now that all's changed, and actually they've proven without a doubt that it can work. And oh, by the way, you can save like $10,000 a year per employee, that's doing it, which is certainly attractive, to the CFO anyway. Obviously, long term, that's going to impact other areas outside of retail, like commercial real estate and that sort of thing, or probably got some changes coming along that are.
I have a question, Veronika, in regards to your business, like from your business standpoint, which is so strong in terms of relationships. Do you think, I've been doing a lot of events here in Europe as well. Have you heard of VTEX? They're going strong now into the year. Yeah.
They're a sponsor of ours at Commerce Next.
Have they? Cool. So Mariano, who's the founder, I worked a lot with him here I'm based in Denmark, but in the UK. Mm-hmm. And I was just wondering, like about events now, what do you think? Do you think like people are going to change their behaviors? I mean, you as an event owner, do you think you have to prepare and be more cautious, to like, as to show that you're following procedures, health procedures from now on, even after the vaccine? How do you see that?
I mean, I think we always have to be, we have to be responsible, right? Like,
Sure.
we want to put people in a safe environment. We want people mm-hmm. to be able to network and make contacts and feel like they're safe doing that. To be honest, I have no idea what the world will look like when we go back to in-person. I'm like, when we have our physical event in August, are people going to be wearing masks? It's just a matter of having like Lysol and like Purell everywhere. I'm not sure, but whatever the protocols are, we're going to follow them. Even like there's a lot of open questions. Like, are we going to are people who had the vaccine going to have some sort of digital card to show that they've been vaccinated? Like, right. I think there's so many things that are unknown.
Yeah,
but
in Denmark, they're talking about like a passport or some kind of stamp from now on that you would need, like a digital passport. It was just like, yeah. Jesus.
They're already giving out some sort of printed card, just so you have proof for the booster inoculation. But obviously that's something that could also probably be fairly easily copied. It could be not legit, right? So I guess we'll have to find some better ways, just like a driver's license works. Yeah. I know there's already an app for iPhone, for example, that's supposed to.
I have one for Android too for New Jersey. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it appears like if you want to do any travel, over the next year, especially if it is international, that you're going to have some sort of credentials like that, right, to be able to move about the world.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to kind of see. I don't know, Carlos, is the short answer, but I can tell you as an event organizer, the one thing that we're thinking about is not everyone's going to be comfortable meeting in person. So we move very quickly from physical events to digital events. everything like from our conference, which was done virtually, to the webinar series that I mentioned, to the dinners, we actually converted to virtual lunch and learns. So like sending everyone a gift card to DoorDash and having them order their own lunch and getting on a call and doing something, it's not the same, but similar, trying to share experiences. We've moved that to virtual too. So then, you know, as people can get back together in person, I think the smaller events will kind of kick off first because they're probably a little safer. And then the bigger events will likely move to like a hybrid model where we have a bunch of people who are together in person. And then for people who are in remote locations or just don't want to meet in person at this stage or go to big group gatherings, they can watch the content streamed, you know, to their computer wherever they are.
Right. And about experience, like how because I've been doing a lot of webinars as a one-man band, you know,
Yeah.
this year, and they work fine, but still, like getting people engaged and everyone participating of your webinar, you know, event, online event. What have you done? What have you guys done? I'm really curious. I wanted to know that, you know, with your guests and from a marketing perspective as well.
Yeah, you know, so I have to say, like, we've been like very walk, crawl, run. So we started our webinars. They were initially, you know, just slides and voice. We didn't even put people on video. And then we kind of moved to video like this. And then now they're pretty interactive. You know, we did a happy hour on Zoom and we had the founder of House on there and she talked about imperatives and we sent everyone a bottle of House and they got to try it and ask her questions. And for this, we actually switched platforms. So actually I keep saying this summit, but let me kind of say what this summit is. So Commerce Next is having a marketing summit series in January. It starts on January 20th. It's January 20th, 27th, and February 3rd. And then we have bonus tracks on the 22nd and the 29th, which are the Fridays in between. What we've learned in doing virtual events is one, they're more fluid than physical events. So if you have to fly to Napa Valley to attend an innovation summit, you know, we're going to give you everything you need in 2 days so that you can then fly home because you don't want to come back the next week. Well, if you're taking the conference from your living room, it's much more integrated with work. You might be taking calls during the day. You might be just tuning in for the speakers that are most interesting to you and then doing other things during the other sessions. So we did it as a series. We normally do our webinars on Wednesday, so it's an extended Wednesday format. And then what we're doing is we actually license a new platform that allows us to do a lot more interactive things. So we have roundtable discussions built in to the actual summit. So there's breaks where there's actually roundtable discussions. We're doing happy hours with like cocktails and wine tasting and chocolate tasting. And then we're doing these coffee chats with speakers where the speakers, you can ask them questions. We can bring the audience on camera, just as if someone brought you a mic and you could ask a question in the audience, you could ask a question, be brought on camera and then go back to your seat.
Cool.
And we're trying, and we're also doing one-on-one meetings. That's the other thing that's part of it. Not necessarily with solution providers, but we really think everyone can be a mentor and an expert, as well as probably needs a mentor and an expert in a certain area. So we've kind of asked people like what their pain points and challenges are, and we're trying to match them up with other people and set up these one-on-ones that are like mentoring and
That'll be, these are virtual video enabled.
Yeah, exactly. On the platform we're using on Hopin, we're setting them up as one-on-one meetings.
And
Yeah.
what's the name of the platform again?
Hopin, Hopin.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
You know, I looked at, you know, I've done some virtual conferences, you know, obviously, you know, that's the only kind that are kind of going on. So I've done several over the year, this last year. And, you know, some of those platforms were better than others, you know, I'd say what they enabled, but they were all, they're all trying to do the same thing, which was replicate an in-person event, right? Number one, and the, you know, trying to do that was very near and dear to my heart because, you know, that the gig I've got at PowerFront today tries to do that for chat and messaging as an example, right? So, you know, it was very much adjacent to things I was very interested in and working on day to day. So I'd be interested to have a look at the one that you guys are working with. really interesting.
We're happy to do a debrief afterwards to tell you what we've learned. I mean, we've done a whole search. I'm not sure we picked the best one, but the benefit of it was it had a lot more interactive capabilities than we were getting on the one that we do our webinars on. It's great for webinars, but it just doesn't have that interactive capability that we wanted. And
right,
like people are, nothing. The fact that we're home hasn't changed the fact that you still, want advice from your peers and want a way to have a conversation with them. So we're just trying to find creative ways of making that happen.
Well, thinking about, how, for instance, the pandemic has changed our grocery shopping, to, curbside and delivery and all this other stuff. And here you are talking about how, the way conferences are done are completely different now. And, I think the same thing's true. Some things will go back to the way they were and some things won't. For one thing, I think it's probably very attractive to companies to not have to pay for travel for conferences, to be quite honest. On the other hand, there are some benefit to the actual face-to-face interaction, right? So what happens to the super conferences when things return back to normal, the NRFs and the CESs and the, these kinds of, these very large scale shows? Are they going to go right back to the way they were, or are they changed fundamentally forever as well? What do you think?
I think anything is forever, but I do think that, I think that as shows get bigger, they become less relevant. I've always felt like that because it's hard to be, something to everybody. I think depending on how much they kind of create streams of content and streams of networking that create more relevant interactions, it's going to depend on how much they're able to scale. But, we'll see. We'll see. I think that those conferences were like, every time people go to NRF, they're tired and they're like, oh, I don't know why I went. And I think as conferences get bigger, people always talk about, with Commerce Next, as we were scaling, let me just kind of rewind back. With Commerce Next, as we were scaling, one of the positive things we always got is people felt like it was a community and they knew everybody and they felt like it had this like very boutique feel. And we were always trying to figure out how to continue to make that feeling as we got bigger. So we would try to create these like serendipitous connections and smaller events within event to kind of create that community and networking. So I think if they can kind of figure out how to create smaller communities and not be a one size fits all t-shirt that doesn't fit anybody, then it will be successful. If they kind of pump out the same stuff to everybody, then I think people will stop going.
I think my aha moment, almost every time it's say like NRF was, always in the back corner of the lower hall, kind of the cheap seats, in terms of what it cost.
Sorry.
That's where you found the oh my God, what are you guys doing? I've never seen this before, So, I think the challenge, and I guess I would, put to you, how do you replicate that, that treasure, that finding those treasures, in a virtual event? Like
a lot more work.
Yeah.
It's a lot more work because it requires people to kind of fill out information and you help navigate them because that discovery is harder to recreate in a virtual world.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, I'd have to, obviously, I'd spend time with the big guys, the IBMs and the Oracles, and all that stuff. But it's typically you already knew what they were up to. Right. With them, it was more about just keeping the relationship going and making sure that, you had the right resources, for the next year and, all that sort of thing, where, when, like I said, truly trying to find something innovative and new.
Yeah.
That was more of a treasure hunt.
Veronika, what's the role of LinkedIn? Because because we've connected and I see you all the time there. It's probably your main channel, like for marketing and relationships as well as your existing relationships, right? Because I believe that you probably leverage a lot of your existing relationships to maybe get introductions. But LinkedIn, does that help you in?
Absolutely. We use LinkedIn all the time. We're always trying to figure out how to improve the algorithms. I'm glad you see me, Carlos, because sometimes I feel like, there's some posts, they get a lot of views, and then there's other things you're like, oh, how do I get attention?
That they change
trying things like
hard.
using more video, trying to post at different times, cross post, cross tag, post behind the scenes. We always try to do behind the scenes photos because I find that those are popular. So we're always trying to figure out like how to create engaging experiences on platforms that are digital. And, you know, it's easiest to find people on LinkedIn from a business community perspective.
Instagram as well for you, or no? I haven't checked you. No. Yeah.
We have a small Instagram presence. We do update it, but it's not. So Instagram is interesting. Like we interact with the brands, but like we're interacting with their brand social teams. That's not usually who we work with, but we still post there because people look there. And I think our core is still very much LinkedIn.
Yeah.
A little bit Twitter, but the retail industry is not like tech for Twitter. They're not.
It's mostly developers, I think, on Twitter, right?
Politics, developers, media, but it's not like, I mean, I don't know a lot of retail execs who spend time on Twitter, so they're there, but.
I said it was sure as heck all politics today.
Yeah.
We'll skip that.
Popped on, yeah, for sure. All right, well, you know, I think we're running short on time, so let's end up on my favorite topic, innovation. Which is the whole reason we got to meet in the first place, right? I was doing retail innovation, and you were connecting, you know, providers and brands together with innovative solutions at the time. So, you know, we've seen a lot of momentum driven by the pandemic and the, you know, changing of, the move from in-person, you know, physical retail to, you know, either a hybrid or all digital approach to selling. So where are the big innovation plays that you've seen as you've talked to retailers and brands via your relationship with them through Commerce Next?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's probably not going to be surprising, but I think it all has to do with where people are interacting. So the areas that we've seen like momentum in the retail space, and I wouldn't say that they're like the most innovative areas, but the places where people are kind of focusing is like pay over time solutions. This is kind of, you know, somewhat of a factor of the economy, somewhat of a factor of just how like younger generations want to pay for things. So the Afterpays, the firms, the Klarnas of the world. Then I've seen a lot of people embracing text messaging. I think that's partially just also a little bit of a behavioral change. The younger demographics not checking email as much as they're text messaging. Curbside, you know, it'll be interesting, Scott. You know, you've had a great experience with curbside, how much people stick with it post-pandemic, but curbside's become incredibly popular. So anything that enables curbside, including, by the way, fraud prevention, because curbside, what I've learned, is very fraud prone because of the fact, you know, like if you stole a credit card and you wouldn't ship things to your own address because obviously they could find you, right? But if you stole a credit card, you can pick it up with curbside, and if they didn't check your ID, it's pretty easy to commit fraud. So there's providers that help with the fraud aspect of curbside, but that's obviously been a huge area of growth. And then probably the most interesting, but a little bit less in the adoption area, is augmented reality, and that's partially, I think, replacing some of the at-home aspects. So trying on makeup when you can't try it on in store, you know, seeing how that couch or chair might look in your house. You know, that's an area that we've seen some growth in as well.
Excellent. And I'm glad to hear that the pay over time things are picking up. That was something I championed even, you know, back on the Neiman Marcus days, and even Afterpay was, I bought their stock. So, and I can tell you it's doing very well. Apparently the, you know, pay over time thing is working.
Yeah.
You know, and I've got like there's one called Save Away that's sort of like a self-paced layaway kind of thing that's interesting as well. So there's a lot of interesting things happening in that area. All right. Well, you know, I think that we've taken up enough of your time for today. You know, so I want to thank you very, very much for taking time out of your busy day to join us and share some insights. And we hope that we get to have you back in the future. And we want to make sure that when we post the link to this, that we include the information for your upcoming conference as well.
Absolutely.
Maybe you'd like to advertise that again or talk about it again.
I'm happy to do a quick take on it. So it's a Commerce Next Marketing Summit series. It's going to take place over 3 Wednesdays, January 20th, 27th, and February 3rd. with bonus tracks on the Fridays in between the 22nd and the 29th. There's 35 sessions. There's amazing speakers, 25 C-level plus brands, over 50 speakers overall. You'll hear from companies like Sephora, Wayfair, J.Crew, Champs, Eastbay, StockX, 1-800-Flowers. It's going to be a really great event. And the way that we're looking at it is it's helping retailers to get 2021 off on a smart start. So join us, and we promise that you'll learn a lot about new marketing strategies, but you'll also meet a lot of interesting people.
And I'll just say from personal experience, having attended multiple Commerce Next events, that they're top notch. So if you haven't done one before, you should take Veronika's invitation up and join in.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Veronika. I'll try to put this up to speed. So yeah, we can make some buzz here from Europe.
Thank you so much. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Scott, it was good to catch up with you. It's nice to see you.
Nice to
Carlos,
see you.
so nice to meet you.
Yeah,
It's
likewise.
always
Likewise. Great.
to talk to anybody but myself, my spouse, and Carlos. It's
I spend a lot of time talking to my dogs. I totally get it. All right. Have a great day.
Thank you.